Okay, let's run.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Nerdy Books. This is the show where we talk about some of the books I've had a chance to read, and we get a chance to sit down with the writer of said book and or series, and we also take your questions. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and our guest on this episode is an indie writer and creator of the series known as Ancient Illumination. Please welcome Rod Van Blake. Rod, how you doing, my man?
I am well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, if you have any questions for Rod as we go throughout the course of this episode, please let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to hear from you. If this is your first time here, welcome, and don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends. With that, Rod, can you give us a synopsis of the Ancient Illumination graphic novel series?
The graphic novel series of Ancient Illumination is basically taking my literary novel and illustrating this out into 60 pages of full color illustrations. Ancient Illumination is a first contact military action space opera about beings of pure light that come to Earth when we're still cavemen to teach us. One of them gets exiled here, and we spawn a bunch of different mutant races, and we get technological advancement as he's exiled here and watching us and basically influencing all the changes that happen throughout the galaxy. We basically took that. I published the first book in 2016, and Baltimore Comic-Con was my first event ever selling books. And repeatedly, I was told, that story sounds interesting, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to read 300 pages. Can you illustrate it? Problem is, I can't draw. So that's pretty much the genesis of how we went about trying to find someone to illustrate the books into graphic novels.
Fantastic stuff. Now, how did the idea for the storyline and all of this, as far as Ancient Illumination, how did it all come about? What inspired you to put this story together?
I was knee-deep at one time into science fiction novels and fantasy novels. I was reading a bunch of the Star Wars novels. We spoke a little bit off camera. Basically, I was in Okinawa, Japan, before Episode 1, Phantom Menace, was coming out. And I was always told that the book is better than the movie. So I went about finding some of these novels and delved into what's now the defunct EU, or the expanded universe of Star Wars. I'd read 200-something novels over the course of a few years, and decided that this is cool. I wonder if I could write one. And then I wrote a short story, but it was Star Wars related. And in the back of my mind, I was like, you can never own this. This is someone else's IP. If anything becomes of this, they'll automatically take it from you. So I came up with a what-if scenario of what if there were beings made of pure light, and what would that interaction be? And then I took it a step further and said, well, what if that interaction first happened 68,000 years in the past, and then how would that evolve? So through that train of thought, I brainstormed out some characters that would develop out of that storyline, and went from there.
Fascinating stuff. And thank you for sharing that with us 100%. And for me, reading Ancient Illumination, volumes 1 and 2, just to be a bit more specific, this is going to be spoiler heavy. If you have yet to read these incredible stories, please pause what you're doing, put this video in your watch later list, and then come back after you've had a chance to read volumes 1 and 2 of the graphic novel series known as Ancient Illumination. With that out of the way, just got to give the spoiler warning to those of you maybe watching or listening, just giving you a heads up. So for me, Ancient Illumination volumes 1 and 2, one of the first things that stood out for me as I was reading the story, the artwork, magnificent stuff, magnificent. And the other thing that stood out to me was the costumes, the way these characters present themselves, whether it's through wearing a cape, and then you have some of the other characters who are wearing, maybe regular clothing, but they do have, powers underneath all that, and they're, doing the best they can. They're going on this journey to figure out some answers and figure out what exactly is going on. How are we going to find this individual, or how are we going to wrap this thing up? How are we going to be able to not only save ourselves, but potentially save civilization as we know it, because it could be very well under attack here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Great artwork, first of all, incredible incredible stuff. For me, I felt like I was actually transported to this universe, this galaxy, and seeing these events play out. And I know I may have mentioned this to other individuals based on whatever series they may be putting together at that time, but artwork is such an incredible part of graphic novels, and I think it's one of the more key things to
Yeah.
the story. And for me, it stood out very, very, very well. I mean, this is. I feel like I'm reading a story. I mean, I know it's not necessarily based around this. Don't get me wrong, but it's almost like a different iteration of the Greek gods and how they're dealing with situations, or hey, what do we do with the mortals? Do we rule them? Do we overthrow them? Do we destroy? Do we have all the answers here, or do we have to go somewhere else to find those answers? And you go on this journey and all that kind of jazz. I really like that about this story.
Yeah, Jordan will be very happy to hear that you like his art. I get a lot of compliments on his art, and like I said, I can't draw stick figures, so I would have been lost trying to replicate what he's been able to do with my stories. I like it too because it's another telling, in my opinion. It's a very different telling of the same story. So there are different experiences once you go from the literary novel to the graphic novel. So it kind of gives a little bit of variety for my potential readers out there. If they like just the visuals, they can explore them once we get the complete series done. And if they want more of an in-depth look into the things that I was talking about and describing, then they can have the pictures created in their head, or at least augmented from what they already been given from the graphic novels while reading the novels. So it's been very useful. And like I said, after a few years of people asking me for it, I figured there must be a market. That was the only reason why I even started doing, because I hadn't planned on being into comics and graphic novels. We're doing the same thing right now with the fantasy series. I have a comic that we just released for Nyumbani Chronicles, which is my alternate dimension, but that's more fantasy, whereas Ancient Illumination is sci-fi. So we're going to be doing the same things with both series, having them illustrated out. But yeah, art does a lot, and it gets people talking, and it allows me to give my spiel. Basically, when people see my banners, they see the cover art, they see the art prints, the character concepts that I have on the table. Once they start asking questions, and that kind of opens the floor up for me to dive into what it is I'm doing and why.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing I've also noticed, not just with this particular graphic novel series known as Ancient Illumination, but other writers have started taking this similar approach where they have these books and they have a plan. They put out the books, they're continuing their series respectively. But sometimes it may be difficult for someone to grasp the story when they have words on a page. But when you have a graphic novel in certain cases and they have pictures and images, because some people have said over the years, I'm a visual person. I need to see what's going. I need to see something so I can not only put it in my imagination, but also, oh, now I understand what's going on with this character. Why are they drawing their sword? Why are they running the way that they're running? Well, it's because they're maybe a demon's chasing them or something else is going on, and the apocalypse is about to. They got to find some shelter. So get out of the way, folks. So I feel that this is an avenue that a lot of different writers are starting to go down. They start with the books, see what happens. If it gets a good response, that's good. But also when people come up to them and say, well, it's kind of difficult for me to visualize this when it comes to words on a page. Do you have something that's in comic book form by any chance? And then sometimes people will say, oh, I don't have that. Oh, that never really came up in my mind. That wasn't in the plan. It's not something I want to look into, because that person may not have experience writing a comic book. They may not have experience being an artist on a comic book series. And that's okay, because everybody learns different things at different times.
Yeah.
So, but this is something I've learned with not just Ancient Illumination as a series, but also Jericho's Bane, written by Arrow J. Knight. He's taken a similar approach too, where he has the books, but he also has the comic books as another way to reach a different audience.
Yeah, and that was my thing. I wanted to give people choices, however you want it. I can share my stories in various ways, and therefore I'm able to reach a wider audience. Whereas if I only have one or the other, then there's somebody that's left out inevitably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely understand where you're coming from with that. At the conclusion of Ancient Illumination 2, one of the characters is hurt in battle. He loses a leg. He actually gets not just a new leg, but he gets 2 new legs.
Oh yeah,
cybernetic legs, and he's it turns into the $6 million man, or the the I don't know what's another similar TV series that had that same format. I can't remember. It was $6 Million Man. There was a $6 Billion Man. There was, gosh, I don't know, RoboCop, maybe something like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but he gets two cybernetic legs. He's ready to go back into action. He's like a cybernetic version of Rambo. He's like, let's go, you know. And so he's ready to go. Other characters discover that there's this creature in this cave, and he slices two of his own students, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? This what is this mystic creature or thing that's tearing up my students and going after my friends and all this? So now he's on a mission to get back and find out what this thing or what this person is. And then the soldier gets his two cybernetic legs. So he's ready to go back into action and find out what the heck is going on and how this all happened. How did he lose one leg? And maybe he wants to get revenge against the individual who cut off his leg or legs. I don't know. But that's basically how Ancient Illumination Volume 2 comes to a close. But it does have the magic words TBC, which stands for to be continued, because I'm assuming this series isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So for Ancient Illumination as a graphic novel series, do you have a plan laid out of how many volumes this is going to be, or are you kind of playing it by ear?
Well, currently there's 3 books in that series, and volumes 1 and 2 basically took up 4 chapters of 30. So we're hoping to get another 13 volumes off of book 1 of graphic novels, and now we got books 2 and book 3 that follow book 1, and at the end of the year I'll be working on book 4. So the plan is to get them all illustrated. Excuse me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's goodness gracious, big undertaking. But if anyone can do it, it's you and your wonderful creative team over there. So we have no doubt. Well, this series for me, the artwork is great. I think the character development's going really well so far within these 2 volumes. I like the looks of some of the characters. Kind of reminds me a bit of a little bit of Angels versus Demons, maybe a bit of a evil ghost version of, especially the purple cloaked figure kind of reminds me of a ghost type character of Megatron from Transformers.
Malice. Yeah, Malice is meant to be like
Malice,
the original Pharaoh's right-hand man. So anything that needs to get done, that's who he sends out. But his look was meant to be very vague, so there could be like a legend built of him. So you only see the glowing red eyes, you see the cloak, you see him in the shadows. No one knows exactly how short or tall they are, but they don't know whether they're male or female. And by the time he's close enough for you to discern any of that, you're done for. So I wanted to kind of be kind of a legendary thing where he just appears, gets stuff done, wrecks shop, and then bounces. And if there are any survivors, it just adds to the legend of this creature. And it also is kind of almost a Phantom Menace-esque type of scenario, because the mutant races that are searching for him don't know exactly if they found the ancient being, or they don't know if it's, he does mention a master, but it's kind of like at the end where Yoda's like, well, which one did we find, the master or the apprentice? There's always 2 kind of thing. But they don't know exactly who they've encountered. They know that, some people got cut up and it wasn't a good thing, and they had to get out of there to escape being trapped inside the labyrinthine building, switching and transforming beneath the pyramids. But they don't know exactly who they've been confronted with.
Very true. Very true. Absolutely great stuff. I'm fascinated by this. I cannot wait to see where it goes. Just out of curiosity, though, I know the saying goes, never put the cart before the horse. Yeah. But I'm just curious, would you be interested in potentially turning Ancient Illumination into an animated series if you were approached to do it?
If I was approached to do it, if the deal was right, I'm not. That wasn't like always the end goal, but of course that would be a nice cherry on top of things to get something like that. And people have always asked me, like, is that what you want? Would you like a movie or a TV deal? And I would say, well, absolutely. To see my stuff on the big screen or little screen, I'd be happy with both. I'd also, if they came me with some crazy number, I'd probably be like, can I take less, but still have more creative control? Because that's the always big fear about handing over your IP to some studio. And then once they own the rights to it, they change a million things, and then all of a sudden it's not what it started as.
Yeah, that is very true. That has happened a number of times in Hollywood. Sometimes the writer of the original series doesn't get as much say in what happens, and then they take too many creative liberties, and they kind of, you know, butcher it and to a certain degree ruin it, you know, for certain audiences out there. It depends. It really depends on the series, the writer, how they go about it, because sometimes it's presented well, sometimes it's not. Yeah. It's a case-by-case basis, I would venture to say.
Yep.
So, but that sounds all right. Well, that sounds good, because while I was reading Ancient Illumination, one of the things that stood out to me as I was reading it, I can imagine certain actors portraying these roles, whether it's Phil Morris, whether it's Idris Elba. I can totally see Idris Elba playing one of the characters, 100%, 100%. Certain actors' voices I kind of heard while I was reading this. I was hearing Idris Elba. I was definitely hearing his voice throughout the course of this story.
Curiously, for whom? Who
for the gosh, please forgive me, the character who was leading his students into the caverns.
Charles Jones Bay.
Yes, okay. Charles Jones Bay. To me, was Idris Elba.
Okay.
To me, that was Idris Elba, 100%. I can totally see him leading that team in there and going after it. Can't speak for everybody, but that's what stood out for me. For Malice, I can actually see, or maybe not see, because it's a mystical, it's a shadowy figure. Excuse me. For voiceover, I'm thinking, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the voiceover of Martian Manhunter from the Justice League animated series. I forget the gentleman's name.
Okay.
But he could do it. Or I don't know if he'd be up for it, but maybe Peter Cullen, aka Optimus.
Probably better, because he's got more of a gravelly timbre to his voice.
Yeah. I was kind of hearing a Peter Cullen-esque type voiceover for that character, Malice. I don't know. That's just something that stood out to me as I was reading it. Peter Cullen, man, guy's been doing it for so long. Gosh almighty. But anyway, those are some of the ideas that popped into my head. Listen, if you have any ideas for this, I'm just curious. Do you have any, hypothetically, any actors you would cast to voice, or maybe perhaps live action act these characters?
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, and I have been kind of thinking about it, but no one really comes to mind. I did have Idris Elba pegged, but I had him pegged for the other series. For Nyumbani Chronicles, there's a Magus that kind of goes rogue that I had him in mind to play him as a almost a pseudo villain or under villain or sub boss, basically, before you get to the real big bads. You've met the Jade Assassins, correct? In the beginning,
I believe so. Yeah,
the green-skinned mutants.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
For Hironike, I wanted him to sound like Ken Watanabe.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah,
I like him. I like him a lot.
And I don't even know if the guy's around anymore, but Babylon I would have. You remember the second Predator movie?
Yes.
Remember King Willie?
Oh, yeah.
What can be killed, no stopping what can be stopped. Him from
the eyes of the demon. Yeah, I remember
I would have him. That was kind of what I was going for with Babylon. I'd have him play Babylon.
It's a good one. I like that. And, I know people don't, and not to get off on, because I want to, do my best to stick to Ancient Illumination here for just a minute, but I like Predator 2.
Yeah.
People throw all the sequels under a bus, and I'm thinking to myself, why? Predator 2 is so different from the first one. That's what makes it cool. Because you're in one jungle in the first one, and then you're in like the urban in the second one. It's like, it makes sense. Like if you go from one jungle to the city, it's a bit of an what do you call it? Like an evolution of the character of the Predator. It's like, well, if I can hunt in the jungle, maybe I can hunt in the city. Maybe I can do that.
It's usually because it's hard to do and hard to follow up a successful blockbuster film with the second. The second one's usually might be okay, but they're usually dogged on after the first one's been successful, because it almost feels like a gratuitous cash grab, because the first one was successful, you're just trying to keep it rolling. It doesn't always work out that way, that it tops the original.
I like it though.
Yeah. I like Predator too.
Yeah, truth be told, I don't know if this is true for the person maybe watching or listening to this. And once again, we are here with the incredible Rod Van Blake of the graphic novel series, as well as the series itself, Ancient Illumination. Don't forget to like and share this with all of your closest friends of this great episode of Nerdy Books. I have the Predator trilogy on Blu-ray. I have Predator, Predator 2, and Predators, which is the one with Adrian Brody and
they're tossed out in the sky.
Tossed out of the sky, and they drop on this planet in a jungle. They actually think it's planet Earth, but it actually turns out to be a completely different planet, entirely.
Yeah.
I like all three of them for different reasons.
I liked it too. I like that one as well.
Yeah.
And of course, it's kind of weird seeing a lot of the sci-fi films, and usually now I watch it with a different eye than I did when I was previously just enjoying what it was, and now it's like that scene was really good. I'd like to implement something like this, or the execution. If I could take this execution and quality and apply it to my own stories, this would be awesome. And that goes for both animated shows as well as live action movie series. That's what I'm kind of looking at now when I watch things.
There you go. There you go. Rock on. Rock on. I like that. Yeah, that's definitely makes sense. But yeah, if in case those of you who are wondering, if you've never seen the Predator movies, not that this is a sponsor by any stretch of the imagination, but Predator 1 and 2 are currently streaming on HBO Max. # not a sponsor. So if anyone wants to go back and revisit that and understand, hey, what's Predator 2? What's Predator? I never heard of that. Well, feel free to go over to HBO Max and stream the first 2 films because they're sitting there right now waiting to be streamed. And don't get me wrong, I have added them to my queue. So there you go. Get to the chopper. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that's as far as roles. Those are the ones that I've definitely have in my mind. Would be King, the actor that played King Willie, at least voiceover wise. Ken Watanabe for Hironeke. And those are the only ones that are kind of just locked in. Like those 2, I would have to have. I don't know who I would have to play Jared Omega, or Jeff, but I'm sure we could find somebody that would do awesome with those 2 roles.
That's very true. There's some incredible young up and coming actors out there that should get a shot, and there's also some veteran ones that could portray these characters very well too. So different flavors for everybody. You never know which way it's going to go. But overall, as far as Ancient Illumination, volumes 1 and 2 of the graphic novel series, just to be more specific, scale 1 to 5. I'm gonna go. I really like this. I know I like where it's going. I'm gonna give it a 5. I like it. I like it a lot.
Appreciate it.
I'm excited. I want to see where it goes. I'm fascinated by the look of the characters. I'm fascinated by the artwork. By Jordan P. Anderson does an incredible job. I mean,
Jordan Brunel Jackson.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
JP Jackson.
Sorry. Sorry about that, man.
Okay.
Should have looked. I should have looked before I left, but it says Jordan. You're right, Jordan P. Jackson on the cover. So there you go. Yeah. Silly me. I apologize. Boy, I'm probably going to get docked 5 friendship points for that. Sorry, but anyway. Well, this has been a great episode of Nerdy Books. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the one and only Rod Van Blake for being our guest on this episode. Rod, you're the man. You got so many wonderful things cooking in that oven, and we cannot wait to see what happens next with Ancient Illuminations in regards to the graphic novel series. Where can the person watching or listening to this follow you on social media and everything that you have coming up? What do you got?
You can follow me on Twitter at Kisan Ascari, IG at Rod Van Blake, all one word. Also on Facebook, Rod Van Blake. You can go to my website, of course, ancientillumination.net, and find all my appearances, all the conventions we'll be going to, book signings, book fairs, and things of that nature. I think that's it for my socials. I don't have anything else. Oh, Kisan Ascari on Twitch as well. I do have a podcast on Thursday nights. We talk about all things sci-fi, fantasy, and just in general adjacent to the genres that we create in. So Jordan, he's on there with me sometimes, as well as Andrea Rose Washington. She's also another author that writes books, and the podcast is called The Ascari Cast. So if you go to Spotify for podcasters and look up The Ascari Cast, ASKARI Cast, and you can find my podcast there and listen in when we're talking about nerdy things, because we don't like to be salesy the whole time. Sometimes we just like to share the things that we enjoy and share our opinions of those things. So you can check us out there.
Once again, thank you so much for being here with us, Rod. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. All the links where you can follow us, as well as Rod Van Blake, are located within the description of this episode of Nerdy Books. Make sure you check out those links. Follow Rod Van Blake for everything that he is doing. He's doing some incredible stuff, and his podcast sounds like so much fun. Rod, I tell you what, I don't know if you're looking for any future guests somewhere down the line or whatever, but if you are, I volunteer as tribute. So
there you go.
If you want to talk nerdy with me, hey, just sign me up. I'll do it.
We can do that, definitely.
Giddy up, man. Maybe we can go down the rabbit hole, talk more Star Wars, right? We could do there's many things we could probably do. But I once again, thank you for being here with us. For those of you who just joined us, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, smash that notification bell so you get notified of new videos go up. And in the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe. And remember, life is better when reading. Thanks, guys.
Good morning. Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.